Hello, my name is Jeremy Cuebas. I'm a conductor and I host the Podium Time Podcast. Today we're talking with Sarah Ioannides, Music Director of Symphony Tacoma and the Artistic Director of Cascade Conducting. In these short videos, we'll be talking about how Sarah uses Cascade Conducting to share her experiences and the lessons that she learned from her conducting teachers with students around the world. We also talk about the collaborative process of commissioning a new piece and how Fire Mountain by Daniel Ott came to fruition with Symphony Tacoma. Finally, we're also discussing how Sarah has used nature footage to create videos to accompany virtual concerts that Symphony Tacoma is re-releasing and sharing online, and how that process has helped her form a deeper connection with the orchestra and the music. Thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoy these segments. You do a lot of teaching now through Cascade, and again, we can come to Cascade in a larger sense later. But I'm wondering if you could compare the way you learned conducting in your studies versus how you teach it now. What were some of the things that really stuck out with a couple teachers, and how do you differ or how do you teach similarly? Could you talk about that for a bit?
Yes, so Cascade Conducting is quite new for me, and it's been a great pleasure to come back to what I learned and start to offer that and share that with other conductors, because for the last 15 years or so, it's been sort of in my back pocket and carrying around, within the scores I have and all the notes that I have from many, many oodles of lessons with Otto Werner Müller. It's great to finally start sharing some of these secrets. And, I say secrets, they're not really secrets. They're just things that I haven't had the opportunity to share. So with a Cascade, I'm now able to talk about the different philosophies and techniques. I'm able to share the physical side of conducting with also some of the study techniques that the different teachers taught. And each of them were very, very different. So from Otto Werner Müller, the really heavy, intense preparations of score study and analysis and marking of parts and the essential information you need to know if you're going to get in front of an orchestra and show up prepared. That was really something that was drummed into us a lot. And then also with him, the requirement that everything we learn, we conduct from memory, which was a very good training exercise. And I still come back to that as one of the most important things about my training with him, is that confidence of building your knowledge from conducting to conducting from memory. So, of course, with George Hurst, there was a lot of emphasis on your preparation, but we, in our sessions at Canford Summer School of Music, we were very much talking about the space and the manipulation of the phrases with momentum and how that would translate through your movements, and most importantly, the breath and the circular shape of your gestures that will enable a phrase direction and also the space between the beats so that the music can breathe. Really, that was a very important one. So those two things, and finally, I would say, in the Russian school of conducting, it's quite different from either of those, but perhaps more similar to the George Hurst method. Essentially, we were looking at a score study, but also looking very much into traditions in music making. So things that are not in the score, things are passed on from generation to generation, and sort of the accumulative history of performance practice then put into your score study, that it's not just everything that you have on the page, but it's also that passed on history that has been passed on often by word of mouth, and now we have YouTube. We can capture a lot of those old lessons and recordings, and I've started to archive some of the things and my lessons with Otto Werner Müller, that then we can share those beautiful insights that are not in the written score. And that's one of the things that I'm now doing with Cascade.
Perfect. And so Cascade, it's been going, I think, for 2 years. Is that right? What's the history of it?
So we've had 3 summers of Cascade,
Okay.
and next year will be the 4th. Of course, this last year everything was online, and I've modeled it a little bit on the Camford Summer School of Music, where we have a lot of instrumentalists who are conductors playing in the orchestra, because my belief is that the more you have that experience, and especially when you do it in a kind of lab setting, you're much more tuned into, okay, what's happening on the podium. You're playing with that in mind, as opposed to for a performance as such. As soon as you put that performance part in place, the pressure is on. Everybody playing the best, everybody conducting the best, and it's less of a laboratory situation. So we like our conductors to come and play in the orchestra. We like them to get that inside perspective, and also the tangibility of the feeling of playing your instrument and then being on the podium, I think is a great lesson to learn. So as I mentioned, we were online this last year, but we were able to do a lot more in terms of score study, sharing technical aspects for literally how to conduct these transitions or these specific moments in a different kind of detailed way than we were able to do with me getting on the podium and teaching one-on-one. So that was interesting, and a lot of scores came up there. We're able to delve into and talk about performance history as well. Shoulders anti-clockwise. I hear a crack or two when I do this. Anybody else? One and 2 and 1 and 2. 3, 2, 3. Rum bum bum bum. You grab that 8th note, rum bum bum bum, and then you release at the time where the chord is. So it's slight subdivisions at figure 6. Da-dum, still give the subdivision, but not destroy the overall shape. So 1 and 2 and 3. Also, whenever the violin solo, concertmaster has a solo, make sure you really look at them early enough that they are included as well. They really feel embraced there. Sordines on horns, ra ba ba ba. So how to get to that? We're in 4 bar. Stop on the 4th beat. Lift, and small subdivision. The preparation before the click is what helps the horns move with the violins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, yum bum bum bum. More active into the beat before they come off. Bum 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 bim bum. From there. So the most important thing is when you suddenly go into quarter notes or subdivisions, the speed is going to stay the same, but the width is in half. so that you don't disturb anything. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. The interesting thing, there's no writ marked.
I also do not have one.
But I like it with a writ. I like it transition. But in the case that there's no writ marked, I would probably take it a little bit less exaggeratedly. Feeling more in 1. And if you can be very connected to the, I would start it with this exactly as you have, maybe even more weight. Don't bounce, but stop, control that. Then into 1. If we want to give 1 up, I'm doing it in slow motion. The arm continues to have the 1 movement. 1. So we can practice this in our sessions. I have right now a bit of a circular 1 movement, and then add and depending on if you suddenly want to get the 3rd beat with an accent, it's easy because you've got then lateral space that you haven't been using the whole time, this window of space. Then you can suddenly use it when you need, like a ninja.
I'm also really interested in commissioning films for existing works. These were some standard repertoire. It sounded like, how do you approach a composer and say, a filmmaker and say, I want to make film for this music? But what does that process look like? What does that collaboration look like?
So I think the first place to start with any commission is a concept and a vision for what you're trying to achieve. I mean, quite often commissions come because, you like the composer and you want them to write a piece for your group. Mm-hmm. But I try to approach commissions in terms of a concept first and a vision first, and then find the right composer for the job.
Okay.
So, for example, the project one of the recent projects that I've done was the Fire Mountain. Mm. And initially the concept was to try to find a composer that had the appreciation and love of nature and of this area in particular in the Pacific Northwest, the Puget Sound region, and to tie in the National Parks Association that was celebrating their 100th anniversary, mm-hmm. and also to tie in the global warming issues of today and the importance of the environment. And so that was kind of my little summary. There's more complexity behind that, but I wanted to work also with the Glass Museum because I love what they do. I think it's very musical, the act of making glass. Okay. And because it's an iconic part of Tacoma and its museum, I thought that would make a really interesting partnership, especially when I was looking at melting glass and melting glaciers as a common metaphor.
Okay, yeah.
And so in a way, the idea was sort of quite developed before I found who was the right person to write this piece. And the film part was just sort of extra, was a bit of a dream, and hopefully that could be worked in. And through, I can't tell you how many meetings with the Glass Museum, and we were able to make a collaboration there with one of their filmmakers, with the person who works within their glass filming department.
Okay.
Because they put everything out online, and we were also able to draw on some of the other projects they had done, like Fire and Ice, and connect also with another organization called the Hilltop Glass Artists. So very, very soon we had a kind of a 7-partner collaboration because we also used the voices of Symphony Tacoma voices to be the voice of the mountain. And so a miracle then happened. I found absolutely the perfect composer, who was somebody who I happened to know and I didn't realize came from Tacoma, who had lived in Tacoma.
Perfect.
Daniel Ott.
Yeah.
And so thus Fire Mountain was born, and it's now up on YouTube, and we're able to put that out recently as part of our Encore series, and working with Derek Klein in the national parks for the footage. We were able to put out a video, which we then later have added both the orchestra performing the piece as well as the imagery of the mountain and the actual score. So yeah,
cool.
it's a really exciting project, and this is kind of one example of where things just synergized in many different directions. It doesn't always happen that easily or that well, but this was just was the perfect mix of finding the right person and the right people. Really, it was a great example of working with a great team. So credit to my fellow staff members there at Symphony Tacoma. Yeah.
Perfect. And you said that's available online now?
Yes, that's
awesome.
One of our encore performances, part of the Silk Road project that we did with Symphony Tacoma.
Perfect.
Fire Mountain. This is a collaboration on multiple levels. We thank the Museum of Glass, Mount Rainier's Parks Association, the Hilltop Glass Artists, who've all partnered with Symphony Tacoma in creating this incredible work by Daniel Ott.
The naturalist John Moore called Mount Rainier the noblest of all the fire mountains when comparing her to the many other majestic peaks not only in Washington but all along the Pacific coast. For me, first and foremost, Fire Mountain is a celebration of Mount Rainier's beauty, something near and dear to me having grown up in nearby Puyallup. My work, which uses not only the full orchestral resources of Symphony Tacoma, but also the choir Symphony Tacoma Voices, is meant to both evoke that beauty as well as warn against the dangers of the mountain's rapidly receding glaciers. Coupled with the new film, which juxtaposes images of nature with the act of making glass art, Fire Mountain will, I hope, create a powerful statement for all who experience it.
The footage comes from Mount Rainier as well as glassmakers to create an incredible Fire and Ice production. Symphony Tacoma seeks to have art respond to life and build relationships in our community. Art can serve as a catalyst for education, growth, and transformation in a region. Through a process of community collaboration, this partnership seeks to produce an inspiring experience, empowering participants and students to undertake an active role in protecting our region. We thank our sponsors, Boeing and the National Endowment for the Arts.
So what is Symphony Tacoma been doing while everything's shut down, unfortunately, around the world? What have you guys been doing? I think you've been doing some digital stuff, correct?
That's right. We have a pretty busy schedule of putting out 3 events a month, which has sort of stabilized over the last few months to both. Well, the names of the programs are the Encore, the Interlude, and the Facebook Lives. And the Encore is some of our best recordings that are from our archives that we have put imagery to. And the most recent one I'm really excited about was Rachmaninoff 3 with George Lee.
Oh, cool.
And we've put out that entire performance, and I was the video editor for that. And it's a journey of ups and downs through his feelings, through his history, and through his spiritual journey, using imagery in addition to some video footage of George Lee in the concert, but mostly nature images, national parks footage, and storytelling.
Yeah, I think that would definitely change the way you see the piece moving forward after having to compose, something like that, right?
Compose for the video editing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like a huge journey of. I mean, it's an artistic outlet. It's exciting and rewarding, and what I'm gaining from it is greater appreciation of the piece, of the musicians that performed it, a greater sense of the memory of that actual occasion and the night and the ebb and flow of it. But it's just one way of expressing the journey through film, basically film footage. George Lee is spectacular, and so that's sort of one direction we're going through. We're putting those out every month, of which Fire Mountain, as I mentioned, is one of those.
Yeah.
And it's all on Symphony Tacoma's YouTube channel, and it's all available for free access. And the other one is our interludes, which is designed programs that myself and musicians are curating and sharing with our public. Again, being recorded in studio, and musicians safely distancing. And so we've put out a few of those, and there's more to come. And then Facebook Live is really an inner chat with our musicians from the orchestra, guests that might have been scheduled during this time and couldn't perform.
Yeah.
For example, Anthony McGill was our guest. Richard Daniel Poor was another guest. And we talked about Black Lives Matter and the pieces that we were going to put out. And within that, there's little video content as well, as a sort of healthy, robust conversation about whatever the topic is. And then some of our musicians also have been recording and putting out little videos. So it's a sort of interesting time for us. It can't replace performing together, but on the other hand, it's a lot of content. It's exciting. It's certainly we're trying to stay connected and relevant, and listen to our audience and survey them constantly. What do you like this? What do you want to hear more of? And all of that, sort of listening and putting out what we can.
Well, and these are all things that would be, valuable whether or not we were, restricted and unable to do concerts. I think especially the Facebook Live, just getting a chance to have a conversation with some of the musicians in the orchestra and with some of the guest artists, away from the music, which is where we always see them, but have a chance to interact with them as human to human is a really unique thing, I think, in our classical music orchestra culture right now. And it's something that I hope, continues to be a new thing, that we continue to have these conversations. With the encores, I think most orchestras would just put up the recording. I'm really curious why and what prompted creating these videos. I mean, it's so much extra work. I love what it adds to them.
Yes. And, I'd like to preface that, as I do actually in this last video, with the fact that Rachmaninoff 3 needs no imagery to be enjoyed and felt and appreciated. It stands completely on its own. But if you were to go to a concert, you would see the orchestra, you'd see George Lee, and you'd get probably a greater fulfillment than you would if you just listened to it on the radio. And because we don't have video footage of that performance, and we don't have 10 state-of-the-art cameras and all of this great stuff that people are used to, I find that we need to find a way of engaging that suspends the attention, holds the attention. And, there's nothing like seeing great nature footage and the way it speaks to us, the living planet, the moving leaves, the winds, the sun, the moon, all of this extraordinary stuff around us that we frankly don't spend enough time in, and we don't see enough. As I said, I'm looking forward to those long walks. But, I think music comes from nature. I mean, we are part of nature, and the ability to engage these two things in a purely subjective, maybe some people say fantastical conception that's only in my head, yet can take us on a journey, especially when it's accompanied with the understanding of a musician and an artist and the historical context of the piece. It can take us on a journey that is enlightening, is rich and fulfilling. And for example, the last movement, when the piano is just sort of racing through this almost military section of music that is incessant and does not let up and is full of excitement and energy. And we know that Rachmaninoff was just in his peak when he wrote this, and he was about to go on tour in the USA. And, there's this frenetic energy that when nature is all abuzz around us, that is responding to each other, and it's in the peak of that life bursting, that we see that, we feel that, and we know so many composers, including Rachmaninoff, were inspired by nature. So for me, when I see that and I look at the footage that I have, which is somewhat limited, all of a sudden I felt, and I woke up in the night feeling like Rachmaninoff's spirit was in a bird of prey, because it was like charging towards its target. It had all these concerts, all these things it wanted to collect, and it had its beady eye on the target, and it was not going to let go until it got it. Rachmaninoff had so many obstacles, so many challenges, and when he got a taste of success in that second piano concerto, it's like all of a sudden, like, wow, I know what to do and I can do it. And he went for it. And, I try to express that in a little bit in the journey, and probably only 1% comes out, but I don't know, if people are liking it, that's great. We'll do more.
For the encores, do you give like kind of an introduction of what you were thinking when you put it together, or are they kind of going in just with a quick, here's Rachmaninoff with some video? How are they prepared for that?
Right. Well, yes, good question. I had a written concept that sort of takes up 2 screens worth that you can read. We also put out a description to our audience, and we also, with almost all of our encores and interludes, we have a pre-concert Zoom where we go inside the performance. We talk to the guest artists. We talk about the production head. We just sort of go into it a little bit more in depth. But like any good piece of art, I think it needs to stand on its own. So I didn't feel it was necessary, but if some people are wondering why are we seeing this here, then there was that opportunity to learn a bit more if you're curious.
Early on, you said that you were really like listening to each individual and what they were wanting and what they were needing and expecting for their job. And I think that's also something we forget about. You know, we think, oh, the marketing person wants to sell this concert, but, you know, how often do we go and actually talk to the marketing person and be like, what do you need from me? What can I actually do to help? So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And quite often our role is also an opportunity to help people learn about the art and about why it's important. You know, why is it important that we play this symphony as opposed to, you know, the zillionth performance of this symphony?
Yeah.
You know, why should we do something special and different? And how can that be as exciting and vibrant as something that we know that everybody loves? I mean, we all know we must play the Beethoven symphonies, but we also must play William Grant Still. We also must play Louise Ferenc. And why is that important? And how to present it so that the audience is excited and can't wait to hear those pieces. Because I think if classical music stands still, it's the end. You know, we have to keep opening those doors, and we have to keep seeking and finding and seeking and finding and presenting new. It's otherwise it's sort of the same. I mean, yeah, some people think it's boring. Well, it's not. We know it's not boring. It's the way you do it, you know.
Yeah,
it's got to be different. It's got to be exciting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today for these excerpts from episode 97 of Podium Time, featuring Sarah Ioannides. If you'd like to listen to the full interview or any of the other interviews we've hosted with conductors around the world, please head to podiumtimepod.com or search for Podium Time in your favorite podcast player.